Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Friday Live Q&A. It is Friday, June the 2nd. Can you believe we're already in the month of June? Crazy, crazy. It's Fiona Lukeis here, coming to you live like I do at approximately 12:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time every Friday. And I'm just going to, like I do, just going to give the live feed time to kind of filter through. I am currently live on Facebook and YouTube, so you can join in on either one of those platforms. If you are just starting to tune in, obviously love to hear who's watching, who's out there, who's listening. Obviously, you're very welcome to say hi and let me know where you're listening, where in the world you are listening from. And if you have a question, you can post it in the comments below and I will answer it for you. So today I've got a couple of questions that have been sent in, and I will, of course, do my best to answer those. And for anyone else out there who wants a question answered, as I said, pop it in the comments below and I will answer it for you. Well, it has been a crazy week this week. It's been extraordinarily busy, lots of interesting, wonderful things happening with my relatable students and in my family and all sorts of things going on this week. I'm also trying to paint something because I've got tradesmen coming to lay a deck for me tomorrow, and I'm trying to get all these rafters painted. So I've been in between sessions rushing out and painting things and coming back in. I was just painting something then, and I think I've got all the paint off. If you can see any paint on me, let me know. And if you want to say hi, feel free to do so in the comments below. Now, I'm going to just pull up today's questions, so just bear with me 1 second. All right, so we've got a couple of questions here today, and all right, perfect. All right, now, there's actually quite a few questions here. All right, let's see if I can get through all of them. Like as always, the questions always get answered based on, who's asked them first. So I always go in that order. If I don't get through to your question today, I will answer it for you next week. And who is going to be the first person to say hi to me? That would be really nice if someone reached out and said, "Hi, Fiona." Let me know where you're listening from. Whilst that's happening, I am going to. Oh, hey, Sandy. Hello, darling. Thanks for saying hi. Hello, hello. I hope the sun is shining where you are in Ohio. I hope the sun is shining there because it is officially the first day or second day of winter here, and I guess the first day of summer for you guys. So that's exciting. All right. So first question for today. Hello, Fiona. I was wondering if you could help me with how I can see things differently when my boyfriend is criticizing my body and weight. No matter if I'm extra small size or a small size, he criticizes me because he says he likes thin women. I've asked him many times to stop and like me for me, but he always has an answer that I need to think differently. My issue with this is that I get so angry at him and say to him, if he doesn't like me for me, he can find somebody else because I don't want to be in a relationship if he's going to be like this. Why is it that I can't control myself when he criticizes my body? Is it that my wisdom is trying to tell me something? I've been sitting with this for 6 months now and I'm feeling clueless. All right, great question. So first thing that I want to say, honey, is whenever we are being criticized, and this is why I talk about this a lot, that the space that you come from is everything. No matter where you are whatever you're discussing with anybody, if you've got an issue in your relationship, it's amazing to me how many people feel that if there's a problem, they are justified in being judgmental, right? That judgment is justified based on what's going on here. Now, I'm not gonna say that that's okay, not okay. It's just you got to understand, if you want someone to be able to hear you, right? If you want someone to hear what you're saying, if you want to feel heard by somebody else, if you have a problem and you want the other person to listen, if you're coming at them from a defensive, judgmental frame of mind, they absolutely will not be able, they just won't. There's no capacity, there's no space for them to listen, because people then feel attacked and they get defensive. And so then they focus on defending themselves as opposed to actually listening to what you're saying. And I think many of us don't realize, and certainly that was me for a long time, right? That if I am frustrated or upset about something, A does not always equal B. So me getting judgmental and me going down that a self-righteous judgmental path is not a requirement. It is not a necessity, and it is not something that I have no choice over. Okay. Now I'm saying this in regards to the question that's been asked here about, it's not so much about how you're responding to him, honey, but it's more about the way you're saying he's criticizing you, right? And so I'm just going to put it out there that it's very, very difficult for anyone to hear anybody when they are being criticized, when we are being judgmental, whichever way that's going. All right. This is very, very important because we spend a lot of time justifying our reactions to things. And it's all well and good. I'm not saying to you that you can't be judgmental. I'm not saying to you that you can't get upset. I'm not saying to you what's right or wrong. But what I will say is that when you bring that to the table, you have to understand that there's a consequence. And the consequence is that the other person can't hear you. The consequence is that the likelihood of that conversation going pear-shaped are very, very high. The likelihood of someone not being present to where you are is also very, very high. So the likelihood of what you're actually trying to achieve is very, very low. And so you just need to understand that, because I think a lot of us don't take that into account. We get too busy justifying the reason why we're upset, justifying the reason why we are entitled to react a certain way. And again, I'm not telling you what you can and can't do. That's entirely on you. But I'm just letting you know that when you show up from that space, it's very hard for someone to hear you. It's very hard for what you want to say to land, because there's no room. All there's room for is someone else to go into defense mode and kind of handball stuff back to you. And then it just becomes emotional ping pong, right? You hit one, they hit one. You hit one, they hit one. And nothing actually lands. And that's when you end up in this figure eight that I see so many people in. And there's just no end point to that. It doesn't go anywhere. And this is where people get incredibly stuck and frustrated, and goodwill falls through the floor. Hey, Roz, nice to see you, honey. Thanks for saying hi. Sharon, of course, there's no winter in Mackay. Mackay is like far north Queensland. It's warm there most of the year round. I mean, if you do get winter, it'll be like, what, half a day, perhaps? Hey, Leanne, nice to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. Really nice to see you, honey. Oh, it's hot and really dry? Okay, wow. Already, Sandy, very hot and dry summer, and it hasn't begun. Well, there you go. So that's the first thing that I want to say. The other thing that I want to say in response to this is, I find it interesting that you're kind of saying, and I think it's an interesting question, why can't I control myself when he criticizes my body? But I think the question is, what is it? Does he understand how much he is criticizing you? Like, if you want to create change, criticizing someone is not the way to do it. If we think about, if we are encouraging someone to learn, criticism will not get us anywhere. And so many of us do that to ourselves, and we do it to others. So the fact that your boyfriend is criticizing you, honey, is not okay. Does that make sense? It's not okay. And what I find interesting is, and I know you've said to him, I get angry at him in saying if he doesn't like me for me, he can go find somebody else. But what happens when you get to that point? Do you follow through on that? Like, don't say something unless you mean it. Unless you're prepared to follow through on it. Unless you're prepared to say, this is me. And this is that whole thing about being comfortable in your own skin, being true to yourself, feeling empowered around something. This is me, right? You either love me for me, which is what you're saying, or you need to go find somebody else, because what I want is a relationship with someone who's going to encourage me, connect with me, love me, honor me, acknowledge me, those kinds of things. We're all ultimately looking for connection. But it's amazing how many of us will justify judgment, criticism, projection, telling someone that how they're showing up in the world is not enough, not okay. It's so interesting because these are all our worst fears, right? Yet we go around projecting them onto others. So, I think what I would just be sort of saying to you is, it's fine that your partner likes thin women, whatever. But the way he's going about this with you, I want you to sit with that and ask yourself, is that okay? And if there's something that you've been going around in circles with for a long time and nothing is changing, get quiet with yourself and say, well, what do I want to do about that? Because it sounds to me like you're overriding something within yourself. Like you're telling yourself it's not okay to feel a certain way. You're overriding. Does that make sense? And this is where we can use free will against ourselves. Everybody has free will. Free will, as I say to a lot of people, is like the Uno wild card of life. Free will is this amazing thing. And it's funny because this is why I call it the Uno wild card of life, because if anyone's ever played Uno before, right? And I have many times with my kids, not so much in later years because they're getting older now, but when they were younger, if anyone's ever played Uno, you've got one card left and you think, right, this is it. I'm about to win. I've got it all. I'm gonna win the game. And then someone puts down a draw 4. Next minute, you've picked up 4 cards. Next minute, someone else has changed the color. You've picked up again, and all of a sudden, you've got 7, 8 hands in your cards in your hand. You're like, how the heck did I get from Uno to that? That's kind of the way free will is, right? You can be going on a trajectory in life. You can be tuned in and following something. You could be listening to yourself, and then free will come in and say, oh, no, I don't think you should do that. That's not a good idea. It'll talk you out of something. And all of a sudden, you'll find the trajectory of your life changing. One minute you're this way, next minute you're that way. Now, free will can be this wonderful thing because it can go, we can be moving in a direction where things are not going so well for us, and maybe we're not aware of that. Then free will comes in and boom, all of a sudden we are moving in the direction that is honoring and is in tune with who we are and where we want to go and what our purpose is, right? So free will is one of these amazing things. It's hence why I call it the Uno wild card of life. But it's amazing how it can take us off course. Now, one of the things that you have to understand, and very few people realize this is very important. You do not have the right to override somebody else's free will, right? Nobody has the right to do that, but people do it to each other all the time. Okay, do it to each other all the time. And you'll notice, and we've all done it to someone in our lives. I have, okay, we all have. But you'll notice if you think back, whenever you've done that, when you've said to someone, you can't do that, that doesn't work for me, or I don't, that's not enough for me, or I don't like that, or you're not thin enough, or you're not this enough, or you don't this enough, or whatever we do, right? Where we're overriding something, where we're basically trying to control someone else's experience of life. It never goes well, ever. It literally goes pear-shaped every single time. Interesting, isn't it? How we do that. And the consequences and impact of that. But it's interesting how many of us feel like we have the right to do it. We feel completely justified. I need to do that because. I have to do that because. I'm allowed to because. Parents do it with their children. And again, this is a contentious topic because people will say, but I'm the parent, they need to do what I say. And I'm like, yes, that is true to a point. However, there has to be buy-in from your child, okay? If there's not buy-in, then that won't last very long. As soon as that child gets old enough to tell you what they think, they will. As soon as that child gets old enough to do the complete opposite and make their own choices, they will. And so what you're left with is a relationship where there isn't a lot of respect and there's not a lot of connection. And so there has to be buy-in if you're wanting to do anything like that. But the problem is people don't do that. And this is what I call having a meeting of the minds. So coming back to this question, what your partner is not doing and what I would be trying to do with your partner is have a meeting of the minds around this. Are you aware of the criticism that's going on? Are you aware of the way you approach this with me and how often you do it? Because remember, we are our own biggest blind spot. We are our own biggest blind spot. So often people are not aware of what they're saying, how they're showing up. They've got no idea. And this is why, and I can say this because I work with a lot of different people from a lot of different places all over the world. And absolutely, this is true of everybody. We are our own biggest blind spot because we're so focused on what's happening out here. We don't spend enough time actually understanding how we are showing up, the impact that we are having, what we are bringing to the table, what we are creating. And I talk about this a lot with my private clients and in Relatable, my online relationship program, because this is huge. And when you have a much bigger understanding of yourself and how you're showing up and what you're creating and bringing to the table, you can have a lot more influence over what's going on instead of feeling like you are at the mercy of something, either someone else's situation, etc. We have a lot more influence than anyone truly ever understands. So, a couple of things in response, because I think this is very important. If you've got someone in your life who is criticizing you, judging you, telling you that they don't like the way you're doing something, or you're not thin enough, or you're not this enough, first of all, what you want to do is make sure, do they understand how critical they are being? Quite often, and this is a tricky one for people to understand, but when someone is doing that, that's generally a reflection of themselves. Meaning, people who are very comfortable in their own skin just don't do that. There's no need for it. We're very accepting of people the way they are because we have a lot of acceptance of ourselves. And so people just don't do that. But people who are not comfortable in their own skin, people who have a lot of insecure thinking, will project that onto others in the world around them. Hence why, if you are in a relationship with someone like that, or maybe you are the person doing that, don't you think it's time that you had a look at yourself and started to try and understand what's going on there so that you can affect some change? You know, I was having a very profound, moving conversation on a relatable group call on Monday with one of our students, beautiful lady from Colorado in the US, an amazing woman. I've got an interview with her coming up on my podcast, and she was talking about the generational change she has affected in her life due to being a part of the Relatable program and what she's seen, and how differently she's showing up to her grown children, to her own mother, to the people in her life, and how she could see that she was the one that could create change, and not only just change here and now, but generational change. So in other words, a pattern that had been going on in generations that she could see that she was stopping right here, right now. She's saying, it stops with me. The next generation will not be doing this particular pattern that we were talking about. So I really want you to understand, when it comes to creating change, when it comes to you being able to look inside yourself and look at what you can create, you are more often than not affecting generational change, because you are either someone who is in a position of influencing others, or you are someone who is in a position where they can stop a pattern that has been going on for generations. And often these things do. So there's a lot of reasons why you want to be able to understand how to check in on yourself, understand what you're bringing to the table, so you can realize what it is you are contributing to anything in your life. So if you're someone who judges others, if you're quick to criticize, you've got to understand there's something in you that you need to take a look at, because people who are comfortable in their own skin just don't do that. They don't do it. They just don't. Truly, they don't. There's just no need for it. Are a lot more accepting of themselves, or a lot more accepting of life and others. They don't feel the need to override someone else's free will so they can be okay. They're a lot more connected. Their minds are slower, and so they show up very differently, and it has a very profound impact on people. Okay, so for any of you, and this is very important, because I know there are many of you either in a relationship where you're being heavily criticized, or you are the person doing it. Don't you think it's time that you had another look at this? Don't you think it's time that you drew a line in the sand and said, I am going to create change, whether it's within me, whether it's for the people around me, whether it's generational change? It's time. You don't have to live like that. There is so much more on offer in life, guys. I wish I could create a feeling of that for you, because you could get a sense of what I mean. So much more on offer than perhaps where a lot of you are living or showing up from at the moment. Hi, Mark. Hi from Toowoomba. Nice to see you here, Mark. Thanks so much for saying hi. I really appreciate it. Hey, David. Oh, you're in Brisbane. Wow, you're all flying all over the place. Busy man. Hey, Tracy. Hi. Thanks for saying hi from New Zealand. Love our New Zealanders saying hello. David, the Relatable program is fantastic. It's promoted me to worry about how I'm showing up. It's amazing the impact this has on other relationships around me. A big realization moment for me. Awesome, David. Thank you so much for sharing that. I so appreciate it. And I love the fact that you can see that. It's so freeing when you can see that. So, so, so freeing. The most freeing thing. Like, you put down all this mental load, all the stuff that we carry starts to fall away when you see this. And there's this lightness of being. And I tell you, lightness of being is a wonderful feeling. Pam, hey, Pam. Pam from Brizzy. Nice to see you. You too, Pam. Nice. Thanks for being here. Really nice to have you join me. Thank you so much for saying hi, everyone. I do appreciate it. So I hope that this helps, because what I want to say to this lady that sent this thing in is that I think at the moment you are overriding your own wisdom. I think at the moment you are overriding your own free will around this. And I think there's something for you to tune in and listen to that is very, 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 very important. I really hope that that helps. I really hope that that helps. Okay, next question. And if anyone has a question, feel free to ask it in the comments and I will do my best to answer it for you. Hi, Fiona. I've been married for almost 12 years and have 3 kids under 9 with my husband. We had a good marriage for almost 9 years, but the last 2.5 years have been quite a struggle with him leaving the house last April. We've tried reconciliation a few times over the last year, but every time we faced a disagreement, my husband just wanted out and said he felt caged up and he just had to leave. He suggested counselling on a few occasions, but we never got round to a single session because he felt trapped whenever I reminded him about booking a session. This week he told me he wants a divorce because he's lonely and feels like reconciliation isn't working anymore and he wants to move on with his life. Needless to say, I'm devastated because the kids live with me and I have no family around to help me through this. I don't think there is another woman in his life because up until 3 weeks ago, he was all in to make the marriage work. I'm not sure how to process this because, to be honest with you, he hasn't been fair to me or the kids over the past year when it came to sharing care arrangements or providing financially, except for what was required by child support. I don't want the marriage to end, but also not sure how to get him to not give up without him feeling like I can't live without him, because he needs professional help before we can try reconciliation again. Not sure if you can help me with this, but I thought I had to at least try. Oh, I'm so sorry, honey. Okay, that's exhausting and it's tough. You've got 3 kids under 9 who really need you, and you've been going round and round on what sounds like an exhausting emotional roller coaster. I'm so sorry. First of all, I'm really, really sorry. That's the first thing I want to say. I'm sorry that you've been dealing with that. I'm sorry that you're feeling as though your husband has checked out. Sorry, I've just realized my phone needs to go on silent. My apologies. I guess there's a couple of things I want to say here. If you're in a situation like that where someone else has checked out or they're starting to check out or they're moving away, okay? I know this can feel very counterintuitive, but the worst thing you can do is grab hold of them tightly, okay? And I know that it is exactly what we want to do because we don't want them to leave. We don't want them to check out. We don't want their relationship to go that way. I get it, right? And it feels, you can get this overwhelming sense of, I've got to do something. I've got to stop this. I've got to, and especially when you can feel like something is slipping out of your hands, right? And there's a feeling of desperation that we get and a feeling of panic and fear and worry. And what am I going to do? How am I going to fix this? I've got to change this. And our minds start racing and we start thinking about, how am I going to handle the kids on my own? How am I going to handle work? What am I going to do financially? How am I going to fix it? And we're going into how can I, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And our mind races, and you have to understand when your mind is racing, everything looks bigger than it is. That's the mirage that a busy mind creates. It's like looking at a problem through a magnifying glass and blowing it up 20 times its size, okay? And so I know this feels very counterintuitive to you, what I'm about to say. But for those of you who are in that situation, I know there's a lot of people out there in that situation. I get emails, messages, DMs about this all the time, multiple times a day. The worst thing you can do is grab hold to them tightly, all right? What you've got to do is focus on you. It doesn't mean that you've given up. It doesn't mean anything. So, for example, I'll give you an example. Just say you're in a situation where your partner, husband, whatever, has said, I'm done, I'm out, I don't want to be here, I've had enough. What you got to do is, and if you're someone who doesn't want that to happen, it's very important to make sure that they know how you feel. So, okay, I'm hearing you, I'm listening, I just want you to know I love you, this is not what I want, I'll do anything to make it work, etc. So you're letting them know how you feel, but you're not desperately calling them 20 times a day, sending them multiple text messages, asking them how they feel, asking them a million questions. Because all that's going to do when someone's in that frame of mind is push them away. They're just going to want to run to the hills. They're going to feel suffocated, trapped, all of those things. I know that might seem unreasonable, but that's just what you create. Have you ever heard the saying, what we resist persists? What we resist persists. Okay, so the more you resist, the more it persists. That's just the the way things work. Okay, and so the more you hold on, the more the other person wants to run the other direction. And so it's really important in moments like that, let them know how you feel. So you're letting them know this is not what I want. So if they have a change of heart or a change of mind, or they start to see things differently, and often many people do, they get to the point and they'll make it a statement, I'm done, I've had enough. But often when their mind slows down and things settle, they often see things differently, and they can often kind of change their mind as well. So that's not necessarily off the table, but it's really, really important that you focus on you. Okay, so getting yourself grounded, having a feeling, and I know you might say to me, but how can I do that when I'm going through that? And I really want you to know it is possible. Okay, truly it is, especially when you understand the way things work psychologically, when you understand the way we work as human beings, when you understand how we create our reality. You actually can find yourself moving through something with a lot more calm and peace than you actually realized you could possibly do, which is the best thing for any kind of situation, because it allows for fresh thinking for you, it allows for fresh thinking for the other person, it allows for insights, and these are the only way that we create any change anyway. Okay, truly it is. But when you're pushing and pushing and filling the space with worry and upset and all of those sorts of things, it's very hard for any of those kind of things to happen, and you end up creating the opposite of what you want. So right now, in this point of time, what's really important is that you focus on you, getting yourself grounded, feeling comfortable in your own skin, getting feeling empowered. Okay, feeling good about you, doing what's going to feed your soul, light you up. This is so important, so that you're grounded and empowered and solid within yourself. That's going to change the energy between the two of you dramatically, right? Because remember, our energy enters the room before we do. And when we've got panicked, worried, needy, urgent energy, every time that person comes back and that's what they're met with, they're just going to, you're just pushing them away more and more and more and more and more, and they're going to feel more and more justified in their decision. Okay, so I know that can seem like, how can I do that? I just want you to know it's possible. I teach this in Relatable. I talk about this all the time. You can create that for yourself. This is the most amazing thing that a lot of human beings don't understand, is that we have this incredible potential to have any experience around anything. That's the true potential of a human being. But a lot of people don't understand what that looks like. They don't realize that it's there. They don't know how to access it. Okay. So I would be saying to you, honey, focus on you. Let your partner know how you feel, but focus on you. Get really clear on what you need, on what matters to you, and building yourself up first before you try and deal with this. Because you want your baseline to be one of well-being, calm, groundedness, a peaceful mind, a clear mind. As you navigate this, you've got 3 little ones relying on you. You'll feel better for yourself. I cannot tell you if you do that. You'll have more bandwidth with which to handle whatever is going your way next. Okay. And it will mean that your partner will feel less trapped, less suffocated, whatever the word is that they've been saying. And that is your greatest chance to see if there's something else on offer here. Okay, if there's something else on offer here that perhaps because of the way that you two have been relating to each other, nobody can see right now. Anyway, I really hope that helps, and I wish you all the best as you move through that. Okay. One more thing I do want to say. If you're in a relationship that is struggling, and you're in what you might call reconciliation mode, but you're not getting any help, you're not in reconciliation mode. Does that make sense? It's like, what's that quote by Albert Einstein? Trying to solve a situation from the same logical level at which it was created. Makes no sense, right? We can't solve something from the same logical level at which it was created. We can't. We need, if we're going to solve something, see things differently, we need fresh thinking. We need a fresh perspective. We need a different level of awareness, right? And this is absolutely possible for everybody. But if you're just going around with the same old thinking, the same old everything, and you're just chewing around the same thing, nothing will change. And you might be telling yourself you're in reconciliation mode, but if you haven't done anything to change it, if you haven't gotten some help, if you're not speaking to someone who can help you have a different perspective or challenge your thinking or challenge the way you see things, because we all need that at times because we are our own biggest blind spot, then you're not really in reconciliation mode. You're just in waiting it out mode. There is a difference between the two, right? Waiting it out mode is just carrying on with the same thinking, the same attitude, the same perception, the same everything, doing nothing and just giving yourself time and then go, okay, well, I've waited it out, I'm out. That's not reconciliation. Okay. If you really are committed to reconciling, you will go out and find someone, and it's important you find the right person who can help you, someone who's going to challenge your thinking. You've got to go there with an open mind and an open heart and have the humility, because it takes humility to see it, and say, you know what? Maybe there's something I can't see here. Maybe there's something I'm just blind to. Because if you're sitting there thinking that it's totally the other person's fault, I'm telling you right now, you've got a blind spot. I'm telling you right now, you could do with a dose of humility of your own, okay? Because these things don't happen in a vacuum. It always takes two. And I don't want to sit here and talk about blame, judgment, but just understand two people engaging in a certain way creates a certain outcome. And so there is always something for you to see if you have the humility and the grace to do so. So if you are at that point where things are really not great, and you're telling yourself you're in reconciliation mode, but you haven't actually gotten any help or someone who's challenging your reality and the way you see things. And when I say challenge, not to make you wrong, but just to say, hey, have you thought of this? Have you considered this? Someone who can play devil's advocate with you. And it's not your best friend who's going to justify everything that you say and tell you, yeah, it's definitely the other person's fault. That's not the right person. Okay? Because you've got to understand your best friend or family have a biased, vested interest in you. They are not the best people to share this stuff with because they won't challenge your thinking the way someone a little more neutral can. And you'll be, and you can get very, and I see this with people all the time. You know, my wife tells me this and my husband says this, but you know, my friends don't feel that way. You know, my family doesn't feel that way. And I'm like, you are not comparing apples with apples. Okay. There is something quite unique to living with someone 24 hours a day, sharing a home with them, and them seeing you at your worst, because we all have a worst when we're tired and we're cranky and we're impatient and we're over it and we want space and we're, you know, all of those things. We don't show up to our friends that way. We're on best behavior, right? So there are elements to the way you show up to that person that you don't show up to with anybody else. And so if you are in reconciliation mode and you're not getting any help, then you're not in reconciliation mode. You're in waiting it out mode. Completely different thing. Anyway, I hope that helps. I hope that makes sense because it's a very important distinction. The amount of people that go through really tough relationship stuff, and your relationship's like the most important area of your life, and then they'll say we can work it out ourselves. I find mind-boggling. I truly do. You know, relationships can be an emotional minefield, and you're trying to work it out yourself without anyone actually challenging your thinking. That'd be like me going to my car and saying, oh, the car's not working. I'm going to pull the engine out and see if I can work it out. Like, that would be nuts, right? I don't know anything about cars. Why would I do that? I'm going to outsource that to someone who knows what they're doing, who can help me. And we approach many, many people with things. We'll go to a gym to get, to see someone to help us with our fitness. We'll go see a dietitian or a nutritionist to help us with our food, or a naturopath or a doctor, etc. But the amount of people that will say, oh no, I've got to work this out myself. I'm like, but you can't see what you can't see. How can you work that out? And when goodwill is really low, you are not going to hear what your partner is trying to say to you. You're going to listen through a lens of suspicion and blame and judgment and projection. So you won't hear it and you won't get it, and you're going to miss something truly amazing in your life. So to me, I do find that mind-boggling at times. It's like, I want to know if there's something that I can do that I can't see. I want to know, right? I want to be able to choose that. I want someone to bring that to my attention so I can actually create something different, right? Connection is the most important area of our lives. When people feel connected, everything in their life is easier. Everything. Even difficult situations, because they've got that bolt hole to come back to. We thrive with connection and we shrivel up without it. And yet so many people, right? So many people don't go out and do what they need to do to make sure that they are deeply connected, that they know how to do that they understand what that looks like, right? So important. I cannot emphasize this enough. Okay, so I've got time for one more question. Hey, Sandy. Oh, that's so lovely. I'm so thankful for you, Fiona, and the Relatable program. Tomorrow evening, we are chairman for a reception for an event that is being hosted by some friends of ours. We are planning food for 1,400 people. I am calm and not overthinking it at all. So thank you. I would have been a terrible mess without you and your program. Oh, thank you, Sandy. That's such a beautiful thing to say. Thank you, darling. And I wish you all the best for that. Really wish you all the best for that. Leanne, phenomenal journey of self-discovery. Simple at times, challenging, but so worthwhile. Relatable course brings us back to self. Best version of us. Yes, it does. It does. And I know you, Leanne, have had an extraordinary journey. I know the changes that's happened in your relationship have been mind-boggling. Yes, humility definitely is a cornerstone to growth, and it feels amazing. That's actually my intention this year. That's been my intention. I always set one every year, and my intention for this year is to have more humility in my life, to be more humble, to actually have a deeper level of understanding of that in my life, because that's definitely been, I have definitely at times been in my life been very arrogant and self-righteous and justifying my own stance on things and very rigid. And so having humility in my life feels amazing. I'm so grateful, but I know that there's more to see, and I know there's more for me to learn and grow in that area. So that has been my intention for this year. And of course, one of the wonderful things about humility is you have to be able to get over yourself, right? You cannot be rigid, shut down, stuck in your thinking, defensive, and when I say rigid in your views, oh, it's this, not this, and not be able to try on anything else. There's nothing humble about that. It's incredibly arrogant. I want you to understand that. I know you don't do it on purpose, but that is arrogancy at its best. When you are rigid, defensive, and you will not try on someone else's point of view. Just because you don't agree does not make somebody wrong. Okay? Very important thing for you to remember. Humility, if we all had more humility, could you imagine what the world would be like? If people could get over themselves? And as someone who could not, I was terrible at it. It's been one of the greatest things is to have that in my life. And the impact in my relationships, my marriage, everything, how I feel about me, my quality of life, because I've learned how to do that. Do I do it all the time? No, I'm definitely still a work in progress. But wow, I do it most of the time. And it feels absolutely amazing. It's a privilege and an honor. And it means I get to connect with myself, with life, with others in a way that I wouldn't have before. There's a richness. My mind is slower and calmer because I'm not going round and round and round trying to defend myself or doing, and this is a big thing that people get caught up in. I need you to understand. Do you know how many people say that to me? I need them to understand. The other person has to get it. They have to understand my point of view. Why? Why? That is such a trap. That is a thinking trap. The other person has to get it. They have to get it. Why? Because you can't set yourself free. It's only when someone else gets it that you can. Can you see that? Can you see how disempowering that is for you and for everyone around you? This is a lovely thing about having humility. You don't need to do that anymore. It's really amazing. You don't need to go around overriding someone else's free will. You actually are present. You can meet people where they are at instead of trying to make someone meet you where you're at. Really difficult way to be in a relationship and do life. Okay. And all of a sudden, there's just so much more on offer. Amazing. So this is something that I'm exploring a lot more deeply this year, and I'm a lot more open to having fresh thinking and insights around because I know there's more for me to see. So I definitely am looking for a greater level of humility and grace around that in my life. challenging at times because I can be quite feisty and intense, as my husband says at times. Um, Leanne, me too. I had no idea how judgmental and self-righteous I've been. Yeah, that's a huge one for people. It's a big one when people join Relatable and they realize that. It's like, whoa, okay. Oh my G, OMG, oh my goodness. I did not realize how self-righteous and justifying of everything I am and judgmental. We are. It's shocking when you see it, but good, very freeing, and opens up a whole new world. Hey, Michelle. Hi from sunny Perth, enjoying your program. Awesome. That's fantastic, Michelle. So lovely to hear that. Thank you so much for saying hi. Lisa, hi, Fiona from New Zealand. I needed to hear about not hanging on to someone when they are pulling away. It scares them further away. Thank you. You're welcome, honey. I really, truly hope that helps. Okay. Very important thing to learn for all of us. Okay. Well, I think I'm probably at the end. I do have another question here, but I just don't think I'm going to have the time to give that question. So I will answer that question next week. I'll answer that question next week. All right. Anyone whose questions I haven't answered, and there's about 3 more questions here. Oh my goodness. I will promise you I will answer them next Friday. Actually, next Friday is going to be interesting for me because I'm pretty sure I'll be here, but it's my son's 18th birthday and he's going for his license. So we'll be doing that together on the Friday. He's going for it on the day of his birthday. So he's terribly excited about that. So if I'm a little late for the live, it'll be because I'm doing that with my son. But I'll be here next week. I'll answer your questions for you. If anyone else has a question, you can send it to hello@fionalukeis.com.au. And if you would like to know more about my Relatable program, because a lot of people ask me about that, you can book a time to have a chat with me and find out more about it here. I will put the link to that down below. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate you saying hi, and I hope this has been helpful. And I will see you all next Friday. Have a great week. Ciao.